every business will have one customer, but recruitment has two customers. One is your stakeholders and one is your candidate.
A lot of times a recruiter might be doing, say, sourcing in the night or doing intro calls in the afternoon and not in the morning because maybe the candidate might be sleeping. You cannot remember 100 people's follow-ups to be done in next week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, how much ever ninja you are. So you need.
So I might ask you, why did you switch from so and so messaging queue to Kafka? What made you move from there to here? That gives you some more additional info, right? It would happen like a candidate would call and say, "You are so unprofessional. I have already spent my time scheduling this one interview. I moved all my meetings, and your team hasn't joined the call."
Hello, everyone. Today we have Jyotsna with us. What we are going to discuss in this episode is multitasking in recruitment. This is one of the most interesting topic that we would discuss, and we'll also discuss strategies. We'll discuss tactical things that recruiters need to follow every day to get more efficient in their work. Hi, Jyotsna. How are you?
Hey, hi Raj. I'm all well. How are you?
I'm doing good as well, Jyotsna. If you can quickly introduce yourself, I think most of us would know that you are a ninja recruiter and have been working with multiple companies. If you can also just briefly talk about your experiences.
Thank you. Thank you for that ninja recruitment. Okay, great. Yes, I got a decade of experience and I have got the privilege to work in B2B, B2C startups and also big brands that help me grow my own recruiting career. In fact, it gives you different experiences in different ecosystems, be it startups or big brands, where you have to actually set up the processes. You have to follow some processes. You have to learn something here. You have to implement something here. So I'm actually privileged to have got the opportunity of building some engineering teams in best of the best companies like Flipkart, Nutanix, Harness, and today I am at Excel Data. Yeah, that's a quick intro about me.
Nice. Yeah, and one interesting thing that I have seen in your profile is you have worked with bigger companies, but at different stages of these companies, right? So you have gone through those different cycles of recruitment across these companies, right? Sounds good. So just now I want to understand, like, how does your day look like, right? I know that recruiters are usually sort of working so many things at the same time. If you can probably just explain how does your day look like and what kind of activities you are involved in every day.
While I begin that, I should acknowledge this statement. One of the best engineers I worked with, Mr. Raj. So he did tell me recruiters do a lot of work more than the engineers, right? Which made me think, okay, people know this fact, which is very true. Uh, in the entire recruitment cycle, there are different phases where you first understand the requirement, then you start sourcing, then you start screening, then you start understanding what the talent pool in the market is and what is the requirement, connecting these dots, and then you schedule interviews. Say you're scheduling interviews, they should happen on time, reschedules, cancellation, then understand whether your manager or the respective panelists are filling the feedback. No, go chase them, get that done, and ensure that you're following the process in the organization. Do not be harsh to anyone. There might be some internal lags, there might be external lags. Maybe the candidate is not available. Sometimes maybe the panel is not available. Might be multiple situations, but be it anything, you're a bridge between the organization and the person who's aspiring to be your employee. So you have to fill that gap. You have to bridge that gap, and do not lose your patience at any point in time. Irrespective of the situation or the conversations you're having with multiple stakeholders. And one thing that I always remember or tell myself or tell to people who are learning recruitment, who come up for suggestions or anything, right? I say every business will have one customer, but recruitment has two customers. One is your stakeholders and one is your candidate. And you have to keep things informed. There are multiple people that you will be interacting with day in and day out.
Yeah.
Think about this is how my day is gonna be. You will have some meetings, you will have some to-do list, you will start with a to-do list, tasks, etc. But you eventually end up doing something else. And a whole day would usually go. I mean, we are back to office now. Okay, I think work from office, work from home are two different things. And multiple conversations for every small thing. Maybe there is a
Yeah.
debrief. Two people are not available. They're stuck in production issue. Then you
Yeah.
again reschedule, or you have sub meetings, sub teams. So this
Right.
is not like a lot of interactions. You plan something, but you end up doing something else.
Yeah.
It,
One of the things that we started Reczee also with, that if you see job descriptions, there would be a mention of like this person, job description of a recruiter I'm talking about. There would be a mention of that this person should be handling end-to-end recruitment, right? Now, this end-to-end recruitment, as you mentioned, it's sourcing, screening, stakeholder management, offer negotiations, running behind panels and hiring managers to fill feedback and screening and whatnot. But yeah, I think that's an interesting take. So yeah, do you have any order of these activities? You partly mentioned that you do plan it in a day, right? So do you have like, okay, do this in the morning, do this in the afternoon, do this in the evening? Does any of these ordering things help?
to some extent, yes. Again, it depends upon your stakeholders. Now, you will
Hmm.
have people who are like early bird. Now,
Hmm.
there'll be some people who start their day a little late, right?
Hmm.
So you will have to plan your day to overlap with their calendars to get
Right.
things done. So you'll have to plan your day in such a way that you are more productive by getting things done with others as well.
Right. Right.
That's something very important. You also mentioned about having all these phases of recruitment into your picture. Like today,
Hmm.
I'm doing a few interviews. Maybe today I'm doing a hiring event. That day, I wouldn't be doing the sourcing or screening discussions. Right?
Hmm.
So at every phase of recruitment, you know which one has to be prioritized. Like
Right.
I know there is a business need and I have to close three positions, just an example, right? And
Right.
I have to pull in a few candidates. So first my focus will be like understand what your manager wants, the hiring
Right.
manager. The
Hmm.
time you invest in knowing that, it depends. Maybe Raj is a hiring manager who wants someone 4 to 6 years, and he's like, I just want to interview five candidates and close one position.
Hmm.
So that is your style of hiring. Like everyone has a different style of hiring. It's just not understanding the job description, right?
Right.
You have to understand what your manager wants, your hiring manager wants, plan your strategy accordingly, your hiring strategy, invest your time in building that pipeline accordingly. Then
Right.
also people like, no, I'm hiring for this role for the first time. I want to go talk to a few people in the industry, then see what best matches for me. There are
Right.
also people like, hey, I have Raj on my team. I want someone who is exactly a clone of Raj, which is
Hmm.
really impossible. I mean, you cannot have an exact match, right?
Right.
You should be able to understand the facts, connecting the dots between what we are looking forward to hire, what is available, what is the
Right.
manager thinking, then fine tune all these dots, then connect them properly, give them enough data, insights. As a talent acquisition expert, you are the subject matter expert.
Right.
You have to give those inputs to the hiring manager. Hey, you know what? I think this guy is good with distributed systems, microservices. Given a little more time, he will be able to pick up the extra mile efforts that you're looking forward for.
Right.
We'll consider this profile as a very good prospect and we'll still continue interviews. So these can be some methods. Again, there is no one thumb rule. Okay?
Right.
According to situation, according to your learnings, according to the manager need, you have
Right.
to like get into a new solution and implement it. Try
Right.
it for 1 week, see if that works. No, go back, look at your data, what happened. Again,
Yeah.
try something new. That's what we are doing.
Right, right. Makes sense. And this is one interesting thing that Vikas also had brought down, that like you need to have that one call with the recruitment team as a hiring manager,
Right.
which just brings them on the same page, right? If that's not happening, recruiters would spend time in sourcing, they'll send candidates, hiring manager would reject all of these,
Yes.
recruiter would keep on doing this, and
Yes.
in turn also waste a lot of time. Of course, and then not meet their metrics as well as not close the position, right? So that just half an hour call or 15-minute call also good is good for like calibration of these things, right? I also want to sort of stress on the timings of this, right? A lot of times a recruiter might be doing say sourcing in the night if they are like more focused work kind of thing, or doing intro calls in the afternoon and not in the morning because maybe the candidate might be sleeping. Are there any such like thoughts that you have in doing specific activities at specific point of time in a day, basically?
You'll be as I think this is a human tendency that you'll be more focused in the first phase of your day, right?
Yeah.
Early bird maybe 8 to 10 or 10 to 11, depends on your day schedule.
Right.
And by the end of the day, you are like little less active than the beginning of the day, right?
Right.
Like I said, according to your need of the hour, you know which phase of recruitment needs more focused. Like
Right.
I have already completed interviews for few candidates. Then my debriefs are important. Post debrief, my offer discussions are important.
Right.
If I'm just in the first phase of recruitment where we are starting the quarter, we got the positions, the requirement gathering, understanding the requirements. Is it a new position? Is it a backfill? So if it's a new position, why are we looking for a new position? Are we expanding our team? What will the new person come in and do? It is only not about go hunt and close the position. Uh,
Right.
you have to learn on the go, and you have to learn about your business. You have to
Right.
learn about your organization. So that is how you will pitch to the candidate. That is how you make a difference, how you're presenting the opportunity to the candidate.
Right.
And all this go hand in hand. I cannot say that, oh, okay, I will go sign up for a course on Coursera. I learn that. Tomorrow I'll implement that. Maybe that happens for a few topics, but
Yeah.
yeah, few topics can also go hand in hand. Like
Right.
someone then tells me in debrief, like, hey, you know what? He has worked only on so many aspects, but this would not give me the luxury to hire him at this phase of my team development, right? What is that you're looking more? Is that I learn in that debrief. So
Yeah.
each phase has a different importance, I would say.
Right. Makes sense. And one interesting question which I have is like, do you think this is justified for one person to do all of this thing? Do you think this is uh, doable? Is it like, do you expect misses to happen, or do you think this is doable by one person? Of course, don't talk about yourself. Probably talk about a broader recruiter network.
I would say yes, we are doing it because a few organizations are following the full stack recruiter model, which
Right.
you mentioned as end-to-end recruitment.
Yeah.
So the recruiter is completely responsible right from requirement gathering till the closure of the position. There
Right.
are also few organizations which are following the recruiter sourcer coordinator model.
Hmm.
A startup, you have the luxury. Maybe you have a recruiter and then you have a sourcer. The sourcer help you for coordination, or the coordinator can help you on sourcer, anything as such. So
Right.
you need to fine tune yourself according to the ecosystem you are in.
Right.
And that's important. That's
Yeah.
really important. When you're doing the end to end, I believe that there is a lot of advantage of understanding the drawbacks in the system. Say, like, I was hiring for an SDET. At,
Hmm.
this is an example from my real time. I was
Hmm.
hiring for an SDET and I'm a full stack recruiter. I'm looking at the feedback that all of them are getting rejected. Why are they getting rejected? They're looking for a full stack estate. And I've
Hmm.
seen people either they're very good at UI automation or they're very good at API automation. Now I
Right.
have all the data. I'm already hunting from the market. I'm talking to the hiring manager. I'm looking at the feedback. So I could
Hmm.
connect the dots quickly.
Yeah.
And in the same way, when you have recruiter sourcer coordinator model, the recruiter will have more insights about what's happening internally, internal challenges. Maybe the interview process is not structured.
Right.
So he or she will go and focus on that. And you have a sourcer. The sourcer will focus on hunting people, like
Right.
hunting, yeah, more people, uh,
Candidates.
building the pipeline, right?
Yeah.
There would be a knowledge transfer, and it is a
Hmm.
collaboration between the recruiter and sourcer, sharing
Right.
information, see what's happening from the external world, what's happening from the internal world, connect these dots. This is again a different beauty, I would say. So
Yeah.
both the models work very well. Yes, you can do it. independently. You can also do it by taking helping hands.
Right, right. And I think in that model, it also needs to be much more structured. If you have three people working on one candidate journey, uh, as you mentioned, it needs to be more sort of the knowledge transfer needs to happen more frequently. Uh, it needs to happen more sort of qualitatively also, right? Because as you mentioned, right, with the estate example, that you are reading the feedback, but the sourcer might not even know this was the issue in the sourcing, right? So if you don't pass on that information to the sourcer, it might be an issue there. Uh, that sounds good. But then, do you see as a full stack recruiter, you can bring in more uh, sort of tools, or do you bring in more uh, like one person doing some work versus say three people doing the same work? There needs to be some sort of helping hand. Either it's a technology or it's one more person helping you do that. So how do you see that? Do you think that it's just a matter of scale, that if your scale is smaller, you can do end to end? Once you start expanding, you need to have these three functions separated out in recruitment.
I would say it depends on various situations or
Hmm.
various problem statements that we are trying to solve. Say if you're doing leadership hiring, the number of positions you do in leadership hiring, the number of closures you would do in leadership hiring is way different than the closures that you do in software engineer, senior software engineer. So that's
Right.
different,
Yeah.
right? So maybe the volume of positions would reduce, but
Right.
the focus to hire a leader is way different than to hire a senior software engineer. So there
Yeah.
are different problems. And I wouldn't say that one solution would fit this two. So you
Right.
need to understand what is really important for that specific recruiting challenge you're handling and
Right.
fine-tune your solution accordingly. When you're talking about having that collaboration between recruiter, sourcer, coordinator, we have
Right.
the tools in the market. We are using
Right.
any, right? We
Right.
all, yes, today, I don't think any recruiter is working without an ATS. We
Yeah.
have the tools. We have the best communication channels like Slack, where you
Right.
can really go back and put up every info. We have
Right.
group, right? In Slack, there are group chats. You can keep it private, public, anything. So you should make the best use of your tools. These are like,
Hmm.
maybe for an engineer, you want your GitHub, etc., right?
Yeah.
Whereas I think for recruitment as well, you need to make the best use of your tools, which will fine tune a lot of your challenges internally.
Right. Makes sense. Makes sense. And do you use any tools for your personal to-do list, as you were mentioning? Do you also like which empowers you to do more with just one person?
I write it on my calendar if there's something
Okay.
important.
Right.
Uh, I keep a recurring meeting on my calendar. I use a pen and book every time.
That's the best. Even I have it. I can show it to you. Yeah. This.
So, yeah, you can scribble it in whatever way you want and
Yeah.
go back and look at your minutes of meeting.
Right.
In a sync up, maybe with my hiring manager, I write down everything and then come back and fine tune it and then send out your minutes of meeting, which is way better than you writing on the go and sending them little unstructured, because the
Yeah.
discussions will be like to and fro, to and fro. Final output has to be structured and documented among all of us.
Right.
Rest of time, which is
Right.
going to be a good reference point as well when we go back.
Right.
Few small practices like that need to be consistent.
Yeah.
That's where it helps our day to be better.
Right, right. And that just brings me to another topic where ATS hygiene comes into picture, right? Where a lot of recruiters, you mentioned that minutes of meeting is one of the things, right? Similarly, if the ATS is not maintained correctly, it's not helping you, right? So any thoughts on that, or some sort of motivation for recruiters to do bookkeeping?
So when I was a part of a startup, I was a 10th employee in the startup, and we set ourselves a target that any application that comes to us through the career site or job post, anything, we have to send them a communication within 48 hours.
Nice.
Right? So we did that. Now, how do I implement it when the team is growing?
Hmm.
All of us need to be on one page.
Right.
In all this hassle, whatever we are doing, right? Sometimes we take a back seat not to clean our ATS.
Yeah.
At least we have to religiously do as a team once a week,
Right.
once in 10 days. which eases all our life because the metrics are taken from there, and also the communication to the candidates, the external world goes from there. It
Right.
is not about cleaning it on a timely basis. We may also have to update it. When I say
Yeah.
update, you may want to update your templates. You may
Right.
also look into new aspects like, okay, till date, I only have templates for once I receive Raj's application. Hey Raj, thank you for applying, etc., etc. Right?
Right.
But after a week or so, maybe I'm thinking about also sending a communication to Raj saying, hey, you know what? Your application is currently on hold. Currently, we already have a few interviews going on. So I'll
Right.
get back to you after 2 weeks of time.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Some of the tools like Lever, Greenhouse, they give you a snooze option that can
Hmm.
snooze your Raj's application for a week, and I get a reminder after a week. Then again, I can send him a follow-up mail. So
Right.
these things, when you are talking about multitasking, these small things will actually take a back seat. But
Yeah.
as a team, if we are religiously practicing, right,
Yeah.
and all are on one page, we all are following one process, it actually eases our life.
Right, right. And I think you brought down very interesting thing where you're using ATS to sort of enable you to do more also, right? It's not just cleaning up. You are also using it for, say, templates. You're using for snoozing things, right? So a lot of recruiters use it for bookkeeping, right? It's not for bookkeeping. You have to like use it to bring more time on your table, right? Because you are doing so many things. You cannot remember 100 people's follow-ups to be done in next week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks,
Right.
uh, how much ever ninja you are. So you need some tools to sort of get into these, right? So another thing which I had is like the communication side of things, right? So now as a recruiter, you are talking to your hiring managers, to your TA leaders, candidates, probably agencies, interviewers, right? So it's a very communication driven profession, right? So how do you deal with these, and like any challenges that you face that you can probably recommend recruiters to sort of streamline all of these activities or interactions with these stakeholders?
A lot of thing comes with time management.
Mm.
Again, how do you plan your day? What all new things are coming into play? How do you prioritize, plan, replan? When
Right.
it comes to dealing with agencies, many a time I have always communicated to my agencies as my own team.
Hmm.
Rather
Yeah.
than calling them as an agency, I consider them as my own extended team.
Yeah. Yeah.
Basically, you're taking the help of an agency to ease your work, to get
Right.
a pipeline,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So there were days when I was having recurring meetings with my vendors, and
Right.
I was talking to that entire team and asking them, how do you pitch in my company to your candidate? And what questions do you get? And I was asking each and every recruiter there who all worked on my requirements, what
Yeah.
questions did you hear? What questions did you hear? Please tell me. Okay, because if I don't know something, even I
Yeah.
will go back and get those answers. And
Right.
people should talk one language.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very important. This is one example of uh, agency handling, right?
Right. Right.
When it comes to interviewers, you need to understand which interviewer is at what time. So I know Raj is a guy who would prefer to take interviews at 10 a.m. I would
Hmm.
do interviews for him, preferably in the first half of the day. There will be
Right.
people who wanted to take interviews at the end of the day. So I
Hmm.
keep my preference to schedule interviews with him in the
Right.
evenings. So when I'm talking to a candidate, let's not take Raj as example now. Maybe I'm talking
Raj is an interviewer now.
to an interviewer now. So I'm talking to a candidate, and the candidate says, "Hey, I prefer to take it at 10 a.m." I'll start looking at the calendars of people whom I know. The first half of the day would be the preferred time for interviewing.
Hmm. Hmm.
So these small connects, this again I would say as building your own credibility in the system, building
Right.
your own rapport with the team. These small things will ease your work. You will
Right.
see lots of reschedules.
Yeah. That's a nightmare for recruiters, right?
Right, your day will start with a reschedule. And it would happen like a candidate would call and say, "You are so unprofessional. I have already spent my time scheduling this one interview. I moved all my meetings, and your team hasn't joined the call." Hey, apologies for that. So you need to be so patient, calm that person down, and,
Yeah.
and again connect the dots, run around, fix the schedule. So there are a lot of circus events that we do. That is a
Yeah,
part and parcel of the life.
right,
So yeah, so it all depends how you build credibility and how do you build the rapport, how do you manage the preferences.
right. What about hiring managers? How does that interaction work?
Well, again, timing. Do you want to meet this person in the first half or post lunch or during lunch or evening, whatever?
Right.
Timing.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just walk for a chai and then finish your hiring sync up. So that's the advantage of sitting and working from office. That this
Yeah.
wouldn't work remote.
Yeah.
Uh, yes, so it depends how you're managing that.
Right.
And like I said, every manager is different. You need to understand what are their priorities.
Right. Right.
First, what they want.
Yeah.
Build that relationship with them. And
Right.
then start building in that trust that, okay, they believe that, okay, Jyotsna is the person. She has already hunted for so many people in the market. And
Right.
she come with this data that this is available, this is not available.
Right.
2 weeks she has spent time interviewing these folks, so she has given me this data, and she's coming with this insight saying this is a better choice than this. Let's fine tune our search now. Let's
Right.
try to look for a different JD than what we have been talking so far. So you need to build that relationship, and that cannot happen overnight. I
Yeah. Yeah.
a hiring manager who feels that, Jyotsna, I gave you requirements today. So this week you schedule interviews. Next week you have offers. That following week candidates will join.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh really? Okay. So I understood he isn't aware of the recruitment cycle is time taking.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
My target was every evening 4 o'clock I go and sit at his desk. And I told him what I did.
Right.
Slowly he came to a stage that, okay, you take care of this. Okay, fine, I'll do the HM round. I'll give you a heads up. Done.
Right.
So it's important how you educate them as well.
Right.
I don't know how many people believe in this, but a recruiter has to have a lot of patience.
Yeah.
And, and you might have to educate people.
Right.
A candidate who was telling me, who was just like 2 3 years experience in the industry, he
Mhm.
comes to me and he says, I want 50 lakhs, which is like 150 percent hike, etc. How do you come to those numbers? On
Yeah.
what basis are you asking me those numbers?
Yeah.
He just has a weird number in his head, and I just want this much, then I'll join. I have to take time, talk to him, and say, see, if you're getting this much money now, then going ahead, you will not get opportunities.
Right.
Organical growth should be there in your career. And
Right.
talk to him for like 15 20 minutes, make him understand the facts. Then he calmed down a little. I gave him time to think through and then to me. So
Right.
instead of whatever you're hearing, you still don't be reactive, but be responsive.
Right.
That's the important thing that we all have to be like internalized with the fact. I mean, wait,
Yeah, and this is so interesting because a lot of recruiters would just hang up the call that okay, our budget is not that. So it's so important to spend those 15 minutes to probably talk through the candidate. Probably the candidate would go through the process and close also, right? Because they were interested. They also know that it was not a right expectation to have. But then if the recruiter is not patient enough, they would hang up the call like, okay, let's find another candidate which fits the bill. Right. But yeah, I think another important summary, if I had to like summarize your answer, is like building relationships with all of your stakeholders, right? How would you sort of give insights to these stakeholders if they are not even open to your feedback, right? So that's the most sort of important thing, to build relationships in a way where both the sides are giving like valuable qualitative information, whatever is there in the feedback loop, basically, right? But yeah, sounds good. What about like let's according to you, what are those 2 3 things that you would say that okay, a recruiter's life should include? Like these are the 3 things that the recruiter should do in their daily activities, basically.
I would say like think about being more patient.
Yeah.
So at some point in time, I was like, okay, this is such a hectic day, and I was not talking to anyone after coming back home. And my friend asked me, "What's up?" And she said, "I don't feel like talking to anyone." Okay, fine. You're recovering from work. That was a nice word I learned from her. Okay, recovering
Yeah.
from work. So it's important for us also to sit calm, introspect what happened right, what didn't happen right.
Yeah.
So the example that I took just before a while, saying the candidate is asking for so many lakhs, etc., etc. This guy didn't buy my point.
Hmm.
He was very mature to know that he can win that much number at this level of his experience, right? Yeah, okay, fine. But I gave a try. I don't think it's gone in vain. So
Yeah.
don't feel that something went in vain. Some days will be like, okay, candidate gave me last minute heart attack, didn't join. It's okay. All that is a part and parcel of recruitment cycle.
Yeah.
All that is like in this whole journey, you would have been following up with the candidates, 1 month notice period, 2 months notice period. You would have heard a few discussions. You would have remembered a few discussions. You know what are the traits now. Now,
Right.
someone else is repeating the same traits, you will not consider them. That is a learning too,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So every phase or every failure or every downfall will also have some learning. You should not, I mean, recruitment comes with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it is hundreds of ifs and buts involved in it. And
Right.
if a coder is investing time in his whole sprint and developing something, it is all on his own hard work. But for a recruiter, after 1 month, 2 months, maybe the candidate is not joining, it is on the other person's decision as well.
Yeah.
And we need to respect that. So
Right.
do not be disheartened, be
Yeah.
patient. That's one thing. Plan, replan, that is the second thing. And third thing, which is very important, and I learned from one of my managers, is you should know when to walk off a discussion.
Hmm.
I know I was trying hard to convince a guy who was being hired for a principal engineer. And
Hmm.
when I say hard to convince, this whole conversations happen throughout throughout the candidate life cycle, not
Right.
just in the offer negotiation, right?
Right.
I was talking to him for 1 week, 2 weeks. He was interviewing with us. He was interviewing with multiple other companies. At one point, when he's almost in the final stage, when he had to just talk to the hiring manager, he came back to me and he told me, "Hey, you know what, Jyotsna? I think my aspirations are more aligned with this other startup, which have finished the process and I
Hmm.
have submitted my documents. I'm in offer discussion there. So I don't want to waste your team's time."
Hmm.
Matured enough that he already made his decision. And
Right.
maybe I'm trying to convince him to finish the hiring manager's call because the manager would also set some expectations for
Yeah.
the career path once he's a part of the team. All this was happening as a part of our recruitment process. Now, when he's so sure, I should know that I should step off that conversation and let him
Hmm.
do his discussions, right?
Right.
The important thing is you should also know when you should sign off from a conversation.
Right. Yeah, I think that is so important, primarily because you also want to get to a backup candidate, right? You don't want to waste a lot of time in like, and that also, even if you are, say, convincing a candidate on a call that, okay, please join us, or with whatever benefits or packages that you can offer, you still have that thing in your mind that will this person join after 2 weeks or not,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Then you're not even planning about backup, and then waiting for the surprise to happen after 2 weeks,
Right.
right? But yeah, sounds good. And you also briefly mentioned on the recovering side of things, right? So since now you are a full stack recruiter, you are working on multiple aspects of recruitment after say 8, 10, 12 hours of work. Do you get time to upskill yourself? Do you do any such activities which you would recommend other recruiters to also do?
I would say sometimes yes, sometimes no. But like again, I mentioned earlier, right? It should go hand in hand. Now,
Hmm.
for an example, I started working on something called ML engineers. I
Hmm.
don't know what ML is.
Right, right.
So me, before starting working on that requirement, the moment I got a requirement saying that we have to hire two ML engineers, I
Hmm.
googled what are machine learning things, what is NLP, what are people doing, which companies are having this, and then
Right.
I went to the hiring manager with some inputs, with some background data. Now
Hmm.
I have to craft the job description for my ML engineering role. Now I know
Right.
what's there in the market. I'm talking to the hiring manager. I'm connecting all the dots.
Right.
This is a learning for me.
Of course. Yes.
And rather than I'm not just copy pasting some job description which is already there, right? So
Right.
it's a learning for me. So sometimes learning happens hand in hand, and sometimes you need to focus. That's the reason I mentioned, right? You need to introspect, and also when you're talking to someone. Say I was having a conversation with you, and you're a backend developer. I'm talking to a backend developer for one of my positions, and when I'm having a conversation about a summary of your work, you keep telling me, "Hey, I use Redis, I use Kafka, etc., etc." So I might ask you, why did you switch from so and so messaging queue to Kafka? What
Yeah.
made you move from there to here? That
Right.
gives you some more additional info, right? So that's
Right.
learning.
Right.
These are a few examples. That's
Yeah, I think this is so interesting, primarily because I have never seen any recruiter talk about the depth of the domain, right? Because they feel that, okay, of course, they are not tech person, so they don't have to learn these. But having an overview certainly helps, right? What a framework is, what a language is, what are messaging queues, as you mentioned. If you have to ask that candidate that, okay, why did you choose Kafka or something else? You need to know what is
what
the
is that?
something else. so,
At
so
least, at least the basics of it. I mean, yes, Kafka is a messaging service,
yeah,
right?
of course. Right. So
More
those learnings also recruiters stop at say keywords, right? If the hiring manager told you that, okay, uh, I am looking for someone with Golang experience who have worked with Kafka systems and so on. If a recruiter stops at those keywords, their funnel is already very narrow, right? First, you
right.
have to find people who are Golang, then you'll have to find people with Golang and Kafka. And then that also, you don't know if the candidate actually worked with Kafka or just putting Kafka in the resume after reading the resume job descriptions, right? But yeah, very interesting, Jyotsna. I think you have uh, brought some sort of motivation to recruiters that okay, you should put these efforts to like learn what these domains are, how to be on top of other things as well. One key takeaway, I think, I was just hoping if you can share like one good key takeaway that the recruiters can probably start implementing from today, right? What would that be according to you?
Do not miss your fundamentals. And
Yeah.
there will be situations you have 10 interviews and you wouldn't follow up with a candidate, one candidate, and that one candidate will become a nightmare, write a Glassdoor review, right? I've been there, right? You do 100 things and you don't do one thing, and that one thing will put you down. That will demotivate you. So
Right.
it's important to not miss your fundamentals. And I learned this the hard way. I learned it from the best of the manager that I worked with, and he keeps telling us, do not miss your fundamentals.
Makes
Yes.
sense. Makes sense. Sounds good, Jyotsna. Thanks a lot for taking the time and sharing these candid insights.